My name's Natasha Gunn, and I'm going to be your host in this webinar, Effective Leadership in AI. So, what are we going to cover today? First of all, let me just give you a little bit of context to who I am and what I do. I'm a facilitator at Skills, and I've been working with Skills for probably more years than I'd like to admit now. A few more grey hairs than when I started. And I've been specialising for Skills in the sales and leadership space. And then clearly, over the past few years, AI has come in and really transformed what we're doing in pretty much every industry. And I've got a special sort of passion for AI. I wrote a book on AI and coaching a few years back, and really like to keep myself on the forefront of this sort of AI revolution that we're seeing. So my association with Skills has been sort of quite long and a really great relationship. And one thing that really strikes me with Skills is how practical their learning is. So it's not theory for theory space, it's actually building real capability and skills. And I love that kind of learning. And their integration of AI topics within their courses is just another example of how smart they've done this. So rather than just bolting AI on as a nice to have or the buzzword, they have integrated AI into the subject matter. So if you're a project manager, for example, in a project manager course, you're going to learn about how AI can help within your project management role. If you're a leader, we can do the same. And this is a much better approach than sort of just having a wee tagline. Thank you for everybody that's sending me those Q&As. We've got, doesn't look like we've got chat, but we do have question and answers today. And I'm going to give you some instructions on that in just a second. It means that we can still talk, which is great. So what are we going to cover today? I've got quite a lot to get through in an hour, and what I'm hoping for you today is that this is the start of a conversation or a little continuation in the journey that you're already on. I'm hoping that you're going to get enough insight and a few things to think about so that you can go and implement practice back into your role as a leader and think about how this impacts you as an individual, as a leader, but also for your organisation as well. Like I said, if a webinar doesn't have interactivity, it should have been a video. So we've got some ways that we can interact. I have seen a few of you give me a thumbs up or a love heart, which I love, in your reaction bar. Keep those coming. I love to see that you're listening and engaged, and I'm not just talking to myself in my room alone, which sometimes happens too often than not. The other part of today's session is I really want to start to hear from you about your own experiences and where you are in either your leadership journey or your journey with AI. So I've got a few people in the audience that I know quite well, and I know they like to think about their answers, and I know they like to spend some time curating their messages before they send them. So what I'm going to do for those people is I'm going to take you through the 3 questions that are going to come up in the webinar so that you can start thinking, and you might want to start the conversation going already in the Q&A bar. So feel free to, it doesn't have to be a question, it can be a statement. We're going to cheat this a little bit and we're going to get some interactivity going. So my 3 questions that I'm going to ask through the course of today. The first one, I want you to start thinking about, what impact has AI already had on your role as a leader? So how are you seeing AI show up in your day-to-day and in your leadership? So it'd be great to hear your thoughts on that one. The second question I'm going to ask you is, what worries you the most? Where, if any, have you got concerns or challenges around AI in your work? So that'd be great to hear from you around that topic. And thirdly, how are you currently using AI? So I love to hear some really creative and useful ways. We're starting to see some awesome use cases for AI, not just in leadership, across all sorts of areas. So share me your tips. I'd love to hear from you on how you're using AI so far. So those questions are going to pop up through the course of this hour session, but you might want to start that conversation already and start thinking about your answers to those. Alrighty, let's get into it. So why does this matter? Why have we managed to get so many people here today to look at AI and leadership? And I think you'd have to be buried under a rock at the moment to not be aware of the impact that AI is having as people, as workers, as leaders in our organizations. We're seeing this sort of almost be done to us. So as leaders, we've got a responsibility to help our people navigate to what is most likely going to be the most tumultuous technology shift that we see in our lifetimes. Maybe ever, but at least since the internet and smartphones. And some of you, including myself, were lucky enough to be born and maybe started our work life journey in a world without smartphones and maybe a world without internet, or at least sort of widespread use of the internet. And if we look back on those times, for those who have got a few years behind us, they've made massive shifts on how we do our work. Showed my young niece and nephew was trying to explain to them a fax machine the other day, and the noise that the dial-up internet makes when someone else was on the phone, and they just looked at me like I was an old grandma. So we're in the cusp of this massive technology shift, and anyone that says that they can accurately predict what the world is going to look like in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, really they're conning, because we don't know what it's going to look like. And things are moving so quickly, the only thing that's certain is that there's a lot of uncertainty. Now, the focus so far, in my observation, has been too much focus on the shiny new tool. And we need to shift this focus to the impact that it's having on how we work, how we engage, and how we function as a team, as an organization, and even as a society. And so rather than focusing on what the tech does, let's start looking at what the people do. And as a leader, I would argue it's more important for us to become an expert in change, communication, coaching, and workflows than it is to be an expert in the technology. And although we're seeing an impact on jobs already, and I will talk a little bit about that very soon, we are seeing an impact on jobs, and likely to be more impact on jobs through that, the productivity angle. We can look at that from a negative point of view, but I see it as a more productive way to think about how it's reshaping how work gets done. So I haven't seen a job so far that won't be impacted in some way, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to throw everything out. The real shifts are yet to be seen. And if you're interested in robotics and the emergence of robotics, we're only really at the beginning of this sort of technological advancement, and we're going to see some real change coming up. So let's have a look at what we can do. So first of all, I'd like to come into the chat now and just to get some answers to what impact you're already seeing as your role of a leader. So I'd love to see your comments, thoughts. Karen, I've noticed that you've got your hand raised. I'm not sure if you've got the functionality to come off mute. Oh, you've taken it down, that's fine. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on what's happening. So Stuart's actually given us a great answer here. From a leadership perspective, thinking of how AI can help accelerate core systems and support customer engagement. Within an education setting, how can AI be used to support disadvantaged akonga by creating adaptive engagement strategies and learning approaches? From a leadership perspective, shifting discussions from what you do to how you implement AI and develop critical thinking and evaluation skills. Stuart, you're absolutely in the right place, because these are topics that I really want to talk through today and start delving into those a little bit deeper. It's really important we have we look from a leadership lens and be aware of those changes that are happening around us, and not just to us, but also around us. What impact is it having on the people that we lead? What impact is it having on our leaders and our organizational leaders? And also how we're getting around as a society as well. So it's a massive conundrum, something that we're not going to be able to solve in 1 hour, but we're going to at least start the conversation. There's some really good thoughts coming in here around leveraging AI to be a better people leader. So thank you, Lucy. That's something we're going to talk about today. And I can hand on heart say that I feel like that AI is making me a better people leader in some spaces. It might be making me a bit of a lazy people leader in others, but we'll talk about that too. The integrity and validation of results is another really important issue. The IP of information and the use of AI is another issue that we need to understand. And then obviously that privacy of information. So thank you guys for implementing, for adding your comments in here, and please continue. Thanks, Matt. Less time taken with the doing of things like minute taking. I think that's a great one. It's definitely helped me a lot. It's really great to see. So in the question and answer forum, please feel free to continue to bring in your insights and join the conversation there. Okay, so the leader's job is changing. I think we're all in agreement of this. So AI isn't taking the leadership job away. I think that's the first thing that we need to say. What it is doing is stripping away the lower value parts of the job and making the human parts more important. And if we take that lens, then how we respond to AI as leaders, that can help guide us in how we respond. So I've got a few examples for you there on the slide, and I think what it really comes down to is that difference between, I like to call it the grunt work. You know, we're going to be doing less of the grunt work, and we're going to be doing more of that high level thinking, bringing people together and doing what makes humans magic, which is that, you know, creativity, communicating, collaboration, and like creating awesome things together is where our role as leaders is going to come. Helping people manage change, helping people build and develop skills rapidly as this pace of change keeps increasing is going to be incredibly important. Before AI, leaders often had to spend huge amounts of time gathering information, drafting reports, monitoring processes, coordinating logistics. Some of you might have been stuck in rosters for hours and hours on end. And those things still matter, but they're not the highest value part of leadership, and they never have been. And so with AI, a lot of that first pass work, the drafts, the patterns, the preparation, it can be assisted with AI. But, and I'm going to say this more than once today, it cannot replace the context, the judgment, the trust, the empathy, or the courage that you're bringing as a leader. And we need to make sure that we're not just turning AI into this sort of trust all thing that we just give everything to and expect it to solve all of our problems. Because if you're doing that, you're coming through really, that's a really naive approach to AI, and it's going to leave you unstuck. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those pitfalls as we work through this webinar. So the leader's job is going to change. So as a leader, you're becoming less of an information processor and more of a meaning maker. So your role is to help people understand what matters, make better decisions, and stay connected to the purpose of the work. And that's really important. If anyone's ever been got stuck down a ChatGPT rabbit hole, and then you end up at the other end and go, hang on, this wasn't even the question that I was trying to answer, or this wasn't even the research I was trying to do. So it's going to be our job to make sure that we're coming back to the purpose of the work and we're making meaning for ourselves and for our teams. So the leaders who thrive won't be the ones who blindly automate everything. They also won't be the ones that are just experts in every single aspect of the technology. We do not need to all become computer scientists to use AI effectively. The leaders that do thrive will be the ones that use AI to clear the fog and then step more fully into the human work. So get rid of all of the busy that sits behind us and focus on what really matters, which is that connection between humans. That's what we're here to do. And I've got a wee saying here, AI won't replace great leaders, but leaders who use AI will outpace leaders that don't. And so I think we're too far down this road to be able to ignore this as a tool, regardless of what we think about. Now, I'm sure there's quite a few of you that have got quite a lot of AI experience in the room. For those of you that are quite new on your journey, there are some words that I think are really important to understand and the nuance between some of the jargon that's out there. Because AI has become almost like this catch-all phrase for everything that sits underneath it. And the reality is that AI has been around for a long time, probably since the 70s, some say to the 50s. And so AI is really about pattern recognition, okay? So AI is the broad field of the machines performing tasks and that normally require human intelligence. And there was lots of use cases for AI before the large language models or the LLMs. What changed about, I can't actually remember what year it was, but it felt like it was only yesterday, when these LLMs started to come out, was the ability to use natural language to talk to the machine. Okay, so an LLM are these large language models that sit behind tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or Microsoft Copilot. They're what we call a large language model. And what a large language model can do is an AI tool that can use natural language to speak to the machine. And this is massive. So about 2 years before AI came out, I went and got an introductory qualification in Python, learning to code Python. And I'm not a natural coder by any shape or form. And I struggled through every single one of those assignments. And I finally got a little bit of a breakthrough and I started to learn, and I got my certification after about 18 months of blood, sweat, and tears. One of the first things I did when we started playing around with the ChatGPT model was feed in my assignments to ChatGPT and get it to answer the questions. And it did basically my 18 months of coursework for me in about half an hour. I was gutted, but and that's just an example of how we've LLMs have removed that link between me, a normal person, and the machine that I'm trying to talk to. We're also now starting to see quite a lot of AI tools. So you're going to start seeing AI embedded in lots of different tools. Some of the examples that I'm using at the moment, Xero, the bookkeeping tool, some AI functionality starting to come around there. Some of you might know the tool Canva, where you make all the awesome pictures and posters and things like that, starting to develop some really good AI functionality in there, and lots of different other examples. So we're starting to see our AI tools integrated into tools that we've already been using. I am going to give one little caveat here, and that's what I like to say is beware the wrapper. And so, like any new technology, you get some people that come through and see an opportunity to make a buck. And what they do is they grab an AI model like ChatGPT or Claude, and they just basically put a shiny little cover over the top of it. So they put a nice fancy web page in front, and they say, this is an amazing tool that's going to allow you to do X, Y, Z. And really, it's just a ChatGPT agent in disguise. And that's okay. That's actually really clever. And I'm going to show you some examples of those a little bit later. But if they're charging you 5, 6, 20 times more than what you can buy the tool for, then we're starting to get a little bit unethical. So if you're new to AI and you're looking at different tools, just be a little bit discerning around what are you actually paying for and what is the capability that sits underneath. We're seeing that a little bit where people are getting locked into 12-month contracts and things like that for tools that really are just a fancier version of something they could be paying much less for and not being locked into contracts for. So something to just do a little bit of homework on. What AI does well, so you guys would probably know this, drafts and summarizes really well. Anything to do with pattern recognition, that's how it's designed, that's its fundamental. And speed and scale, so we can draft and reformat and brainstorm and create ideas really quickly and on the fly, at varying levels of quality, mind you. Where it falls short and where we need to make sure that we're not over relying on AI, the big one is nuanced judgment. Your chat GPT is not a person, and it isn't your best friend that loves you, even though it tells you that it is. Asking it whether or not the argument that you had with your partner last night over who should cook dinner, that you were right and they were wrong, might not have all of the information that it needs. So we need to be careful and not rely on its judgment too deep. And like I said, it's that context in relationships is really important. And we've all seen the horror stories of accuracy. So AI is a predictive model. It's trying to guess what the most accurate and the best words to come next are. It's not a font of all knowledge that has every single answer. And so we need to be careful that we're not relying on its accuracy. So we've got a saying, we say human in the loop. You'll hear this one quite a bit. Human in the loop. We still need to make sure the human is in control of whatever's coming in, and that the human is still responsible for the output. So the end product still needs to be verified and owned by a human. It's really important. I'd love to hear in the Q&A. I'm starting to see some things come in. This is where I'd love to hear a little bit around how you're using AI. And I'm going to just pause and read some of these great responses that I'm getting in here. Sergey is correcting me, and he's correct. Sergey says robotic capability should be mixed with AI with a caveat. They have been used since the 80s, and this is something that for die-hard computer scientists or computer technicians, this tech has been around for a long time. It's just becoming popular. And it reminds me back of when there's a famous quote with the CEO at the time of IBM, I think it was, said he could imagine a use case where there'd be about 5 computers built in the world. So when computers started to were invented and started to be designed, he imagined a world where we might need about 5 of them. And so it's so hard to predict how this technology is going to go, but I don't think we sort of could have anticipated the scale of computing. Smartphones and cell phones is another real great example of that. There's some really cool comments coming in here, guys. So in terms of use cases, we've got some really good examples. Tim's saying that investigating and summarizing information and decision making, that's a really good example of how we can use it well. Karen's using it to improve her communication messages, which we're going to talk a wee bit about today. What else have we got in here? Max has got a good one, tattoo designs. That's a new one I haven't heard before, Max, but that's an awesome idea. So tattoo designs and job applications. I managed to land a bit of a dream contract a few years back. It was my dream job working for FIFA, and AI helped me with that job application, and I think it was that actually got me the foot in the door. So I agree with you on that one. Kate, Copilot used to draft reports, improve writing, analyzing data, preparing internal audit plans. So yeah, you guys are already using it. Erin's using it to summarize meeting recordings and then get the action points quickly and creating sort of policies and templates. So we've got some really good use cases coming through there, and it's a good idea to just go out there and talk to other people, look at different industries and how are they using AI, because it's amazing what you can pick up. And I'm talking AI and meeting people around the AI world every single day, and I'm getting these new use cases or new examples of how people are using it all the time, and it's just fascinating how much human creativity, when you add that, what awesome sort of stuff you can get. So I want to show you a couple of examples of how I'm using AI at the moment, and we're talking very much in a leadership context at the moment. So I'm a leader. I run my own business. I've got a team spread around New Zealand and the Philippines. We're learning designers, so we've been using AI quite a lot, and it's really helped me with some really key aspects of my leadership, particularly around communication. But I'm also really fascinated about how it can help me build the capability of my team and how I can use it as a better coach and as a bit of a learning facilitator. So I'm going to show you a few examples and a few little demos today, and maybe give you a couple of things that you can play with as well. So from a leadership perspective, 4 general areas that I think you can really add value with AI. So communicating. So we had this one as an example. Drafts, emails, proposals. If you've got your AI model integrated into your system, so for example, if you're using Copilot, for example, in an enterprise level, and the AI Copilot model has access to your SharePoint and to your emails, maybe to your Teams messages, then it can show some really great initiative and be doing a lot of that pre-work drafting. In a previous webinar, I demonstrated a customer service complaints model where we had a email for customers to email in their feedback, and the AI model was picking up those emails, validating the response in the complaint, and then drafting an appropriate response back to the client, so that I'm getting up in the morning now, and rather than having to go through and do all of that analysis, I'm reading the draft reply, I'm signing it off and making sure that it's correct, and then I'm sending it. So integrating AI into your ecosystem has been a massive game changer. So something to look into if you're not doing that already. And I appreciate that there's lots of different organizational requirements. Most of us have got sort of work AI and then home AI and play AI. And so you find the solutions that are going to work for you. Decision support, I'm going to show you a little example of that in a second, but I find that I'm a bit of an overthinker. I also like to really strategize and really think about how I'm going to approach things. And AI has been, ChatGPT for me specifically, has become an amazing thinking partner. And I'm going to give you some examples of that in just a second. I did mention team capability. I'm going to show you a couple of examples, and I'll share a couple of links that you can play with there. And then obviously productivity. So turning one idea into multiple outputs has been a game changer for me. And so being able to take, maybe it's a blog, I'll give you another example. So I'll go to a conference and I'll have my AI, I'll be using Notion as my AI tool. I'll have Notion in the background recording all of the speakers from the conference, and then I can bring that back. I can get my AI to synthesize it and to give me the key points of everybody in context to my business and my area of expertise. So it can help me analyze and strategize where the important bits were from the conference, what were the most exciting bits or bits that I need to come back. And there's some really awesome things that you can do with that once you've got it there in the once you've got it there. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to share a link, but I'm going to try. Otherwise, we'll share these links after the session for you. One of the big ways that I've been playing around with AI recently is how to help people build capability. So I've got a team, I want to improve their sales results, for example. So rather than doing the dreaded role play, so a few of you that are in the training and development world will agree with me on how much people love to do role play, especially in some kind of workshop where there's a whole lot of people watching at the same time. It's usually not a very good experience for the person having to do the role play. So you can create a little AI agent that can play the role of customer and help them practice those sales conversations in a much more safe environment. And you can also program them to give feedback and things like that. And if you want to do it well, you can provide the AI bot with things like your sales and service catalog. For this example I'm going to show you, it's about selling barbecues. And so I went to the website and I downloaded all the product catalogs of the barbecues. So my AI bot knows all about the prices, makes some models, pros and cons of everything. And now I can just practice a discovery conversation. I'm gonna try this with you guys right here. It's always scary when you're doing live AI demonstrations, but I'm in ChatGPT. This is an agent that I've created, and I'm turning it on to the um, conversation setting. Hi, I need to practice my discovery with clients. Can you pretend to be a customer that's looking for a new barbecue?
Hi, I'm looking for a new barbecue, but I'm not exactly sure where to start. Could you help me figure out what might suit me best?
Yeah, I'd love to. Have you had a barbecue before?
Yeah, I've had one, but it's pretty old now. I'm definitely ready for something new.
Okay, great. Who will you be barbecuing for you? Do you have a family? Do you like to have parties? Who would use the barbecue?
It's mostly for my family, so let's say four of us regularly. But I do have friends over maybe once or twice a month for a little gathering.
Okay, great. And are you looking for gas or something with an open flame?
I'm definitely leaning toward gas. I like the convenience. Quick on, quick off. I don't want to mess around too much with other fuel.
Okay, great. Can we just step out of this role play now and can you give me some advice on the questions that I asked you?
Absolutely, let's break it down. You asked about my past barbecue experience, who I'd be cooking for, and the fuel type. That's a bit start. To fully meet the standard, though, you'd want to add a few more discovery areas, like asking about my budget, how often I entertain, how much space I have, or if I care about specific features, like a roasting hood or easy cleaning. So next time, keep those extra angles in mind before recommending.
And it can go on and go on, and we can shape that feedback to make sure that it hits company standards or things like that. And that's a sales model example, but you can do that for performance management conversations. You could be doing it to practice the grow model and coaching. Maybe you've got a particular you might be having a mechanic shop that needs to learn how to talk to clients in a way that they understand and stop talking jargon. There's a million different use cases that you can use to create these sort of little microbots that are going to help us. Another one that I'm loving at the moment is a number of wine Friday index. So our team has a ritual of sharing with the team a rating of how their week's gone, what have been the highs, what have been the lows. And so now we've been putting it into a ChatGPT agent. It gives us a summary of our wins and losses for the week. It gives us a rating out of 10 of how the week went. And then it recommends us how many wines do we need on that Friday night to recover, and why do we deserve them. And it's just a really nice, fun way to bring the team together and have a bit of a laugh on a Friday afternoon. Couple of other examples of how I've been using it. In one particular case, I was helping a team leader manage someone who was having a lot of sick leave. So they were really struggling to keep this person accountable for the amount of sick leave they were having, and more so, not just so much sick leave, but unplanned leave. And so there seemed to be emerging a little bit of a pattern of time and day of when this person was needing some unplanned leave. And it seemed like, it felt like it was Friday afternoons and Monday mornings. And so we went into Copilot because they'd been using Copilot for some time, and actually got the AI to do an analysis of all of the times that these keywords were discussed, of like, I'm leaving early, I need to go, those things. And we were able to plot out and see, in fact, there was a real pattern there. And that made made it a lot easier to have those conversations, to bring that to the table and to talk about that. Another couple in the co-pilot space is asking it to review how you're interacting. So if you have your AI embedded into your email inbox and into your ecosystem, asking it to review how you interact with the team and checking in that you're not showing favoritism to one person over the other. I've been doing a few funny ones around, like, what does my boss think of me based on everything that we've had in our correspondence, and getting some insights. And it sounds a bit trivial and a bit dumb, but it's actually amazing on the types of things it brings back, and it gives you something to think about. I use prompts like, if I was going to 10x this plan, what would it look like? My team love that one because I'm always coming back with a bigger and better idea. And the other one that I like to do is ask what would Google being my favorite company, what would Google do in this situation? How would Google handle this problem? And that could be anyone, but it just gives you an example of the types of things. I mentioned earlier that I really like to use AI as a thinking partner and as almost like a leader coach. And here are some examples of how I might do that. So I integrate AI into every stage of coaching or performance, and both myself and my others. And I'm probably using it more on myself than I am with others, but the concept is the same. The key is to do your thinking first. Okay, so where people get caught up is they jump onto ChatGPT or whatever model they're using, and they say, how do I be a better leader? Or what should be our team activity next Tuesday? No context, nothing at all. You're going to get bland, really generic answers if you do that. A much better model is to come in and say, I'm trying to achieve XYZ with these people, and I'm thinking about running this type of approach at the team meeting on Tuesday. Give me some analysis on whether this will work, or what else am I thinking, or what are my blind spots. And so I'm doing the thinking still, and I'm putting my ideas in there and expanding on them. I'm not going in with no brain and going, give me all the answers to life. That's where we get a bit unstuck, and sometimes we can get led down the garden path. So remember, context is everything. If you're not giving it that context, and if you're not doing this critical thinking up here, you're just creating an echo chamber, and that's not useful. And it's going to make you lazy, and it's also probably going to lead you to some problems. I come across a very unusual case study at a conference a couple of weeks ago, where we had two senior executives both using AI to summarize and read their emails and their reports. And we had a project lead in the middle of these two executives who was actually doing real work and actually putting these reports together, thinking through, going through and getting feedback, synthesizing everything, pulling it all out. And but what was happening, they were sending that into email. Both executives were getting their AI to read those reports, spitting out very small summaries, making not very good decisions or guidance based on that was contradicting each other, and then basically setting this poor project lead up for failure. And it wasn't until all three got into a room that it was realized that was happening. But there was about 6 to 8 months worth of time lost on this project because the executives weren't really paying attention, and they were allowing the AI to do their thinking for them without the context that's required to do that. So we need to be very careful we're not falling into that trap, and we're not becoming lazy. It's a really important part. The other thing, for those of you that really like your models, so your leadership models or growth models, it knows every framework. So for example, I could say, here's the feedback that I want to give to this person about this. Can you put this into a growth format so that I can work on my conversation better? Or I can take a transcript of a conversation that I've had, and then I put it in and get it to critique in regards to radical candor, for example. Did I show, did I show proper genuine interest here, or what did I miss? What other questions could have I asked to improve the outcome of this conversation, or things like that. Another one that's a bit fun, if you haven't tried, I'll be preparing for, usually I do this with myself, so I'll be asking for advice or giving it information, and then I'll say, to stop it being so nice to me, I'll say, how would Simon Cowell deliver this message? What would Simon Cowell, and if you don't know who Simon Cowell is, Google him. How would Simon Cowell see this situation, and what would he tell me to do? And then I go to the other extreme and I say, what would Oprah Winfrey think about this? And I get it to think in her voice. And it's just a really good way to get a range of opinion. The other one I use a wee bit is Elon Musk. would Elon Musk waste his time here? Or how do I elevate this? Or, those sorts of things. So it can add the context of these different pieces. Sometimes I get really into a good leadership book or a good, good leadership books, usually what they are. So I'll say, in the context of this book, what parts am I missing here? Or how would I adopt this habit using this habit framework, or those sorts of things? So it does that really well, and you can get really creative with what you're doing. So there are just a few examples. I could talk about that all day. And there's some good questions coming through, which I'll make sure that we answer. Thanks, Matt. I just saw your question there. It's a good one. So lots of good questions coming through, so keep them coming. There's a million use cases for this, and it's more about putting your own creativity. And my biggest advice to you is just play, experiment, do low value things that aren't going to hurt anything. So when I first started using AI models and wanting to learn about them, I did some really low sort of low value or mission things that aren't mission critical, except so one example, I love plants and I love growing pot plants. So I take a photo, I've got a project set up, I'll take a photo of the plant in its current state, and I'll say to the AI coach, well, how's this plant looking? What does it need? Is it in the right spot? And it's going to give me feedback on that and how to do that. And that's been really cool. I've actually had a much lower death rate in my household plants since I've started using ChatGPT as a plant coach. Another example is bringing in the data. So bringing in data that I've collected on my running for the last 12 months, and then asking it to analyze that as a coach, and then telling me what would Simon Cowell say about those runs that I missed last week. So lots of different use cases. If you haven't played with it, play with something that's fun. Get into it in a way that you enjoy, with something that you enjoy, and then see how you can apply that back to your leadership role, apply that back to your organization, and share that with others. My next question, and I'm going to answer a couple in a second because there's a couple of good ones there. We're going to just talk a little bit about the other side of this. So you can see here I'm a little bit of a convert. I'm loving AI. I use it every day. But there are some things that keep me up at night, and there are some worries with AI, and there are some things that we need to understand as leaders so that we don't fall into these pitfalls. So I'd love to hear your experiences around what's worrying you, what's keeping you up at night. We've had a few in there already, things like privacy, intellectual property and who owns what data, data sovereignty. There are a lot of massive issues that we need to be aware of, and we actually need to be engaged in those conversations. And there's lots of different forums in New Zealand in which we can become part of a voice in those discussions. So it is important that we stay aware, and that we're not just sort of selling ourselves and our data and our brains to some sort of distant corporate entity that's just going to make money off us, So there's definitely some things that we need to be really mindful of, and we really need to understand. So from a leadership perspective, here's a couple of things that I think as a leader you need to understand. And this is a good slide to take a wee snippet of, and this might be your to-do list of where am I going to broaden my understanding of AI, and what am I going to think about in terms of my leadership strategy, and where I'm going to draw the lines. So a couple here that I want to just talk through. Hallucinations and errors. So it can be so confidently incorrect. It really can. And so we still need to be the human in the loop. We still need to have the expert that knows the stuff and knows what they're doing in order to manage and control and make sure that we're actually getting output that's important. I wouldn't trust AI on the most important parts of my role. I want to make sure that I've still got autonomy, and I want to be 100% responsible for my output. So I can't just hide behind, oh, AI told me wrong. That's not good enough, okay? And that should be the standard that we're setting for our teams as well. There's massive data and privacy issues, and as the models grow and expand, if you're keeping up with the politics of this, there's a lot going on. Be informed and understand your organization's policy. Okay, so that would be my biggest advice here, is talk to your organization. There's this term that you might have heard of called shadow AI, and shadow AI is real. So shadow AI is when the organization itself has either put a black ban on AI, or they may have one AI tool, maybe it's Copilot, for example, but people are using AI tools to do their work outside of that infrastructure. So they're going home and they're putting that report in through ChatGPT because they've got a better model and they're used to using that tool instead. So shadow AI is real. We saw it a lot in the early days of AI where our early adopters were using tools, but the organization wasn't keeping up. And we were having this weird time where you could see people were using AI, but they weren't admitting it at work. They were keeping it to themselves, maybe because they felt like, oh, I can be more productive and maybe have a bit more time off and slack off a bit because AI is going to do all my work now. So we need to be really careful around that. And we need to be open and transparent. We need to talk to our teams about what's going on and what's actually happening. And we need to educate our teams on the risks of shadow AI and make sure that we've got very firm policies about what should be shared, what can't be shared, and why. So getting informed around that is really important. There's a trend that I've been seeing. So I've been working with lots of organizations that are adopting AI and a lot of individuals that are adopting AI. And what I'm seeing is this sort of basic behavior that it starts off a little bit skeptical and people don't really know how to prompt properly and they're not getting very good output. And so we teach them a few skills and we teach them how to add context and we teach them how to prompt better. And then all of a sudden, they just become these AI machines and they just start banging everything into AI. Let's see what AI thinks about. Let's see what AI is doing here. Let's just get AI to write that report. And I'm seeing that not just from individuals, but also from leaders. So leaders with very with not very deep understanding of AI going, oh, surely you can get AI to do that. Surely we can make this faster because AI can do it now, but not really having any understanding of the technology sitting underneath those. So if you're one of those leaders, you need to check yourself because AI isn't this magic cure that's just going to slash budgets and get rid of half of your workforce. You need to really understand where it works well and what's happening. But we also need to hold people accountable to not producing AI slop. And you know AI slop when you see it. It's reams and reams of absolute verbal garbage that comes out. It's wishy-washy, it's very generic, and sometimes people look at that and go, good enough, and then they put that through. So we there is definitely an over-reliance. What I'm seeing from experience is people are going really the other way, really over-reliant in AI for a little while they're getting their head around it. And then they're starting to get a little bit more skeptical. They're starting to become a little bit more aware of the traps, and then they're becoming a little bit more discerning and a little bit more measured in their approach to AI. And they, over time, they start to learn better use cases of AI and more like productive use of AI. That transition happens better if they're getting feedback from their leader and they're getting coached by their leader. If you're just ignoring that, the standard that you walk past is the standard that you accept. And so if you're getting AI slop back from somebody and you're not calling it out, you're basically giving them the message that this is the new standard of work that's okay. So we need to be really careful about that. We need to make sure that we're being transparent about how we're using AI. AI is really biased. So it's very American centric. It's very sort of white Anglo-Saxon middle class centric. It's not trained on, it's only trained on specific data sets. So we need to be really careful that we're not falling into this trap of adopting its own biases and decisions and things like that. And there's been some awesome research and studies done around, recruitment spaces where it's looking through CVs and it's being biased towards sort of white sounding names or English sounding names or things like that. There's lots of examples of it out there. We need to be critical in our decision making, especially when it comes to the people that we're dealing with and the decisions that we're making. Another one to watch out for is what we call tool sprawl or wasted spend. And I love technology, so I've been a bit guilty of this over the last couple of years. Oh, shiny new AI tool, I need to buy it. Oh, shiny new AI tool, I need to buy it. And then going to the team and saying, right, guys, you've got all these new tools, but we haven't actually thought about the problem we're trying to solve with AI, or how we're going to use it, or how we're going to integrate it into our workflow. And so start with the problem that you're trying to solve, not with the tool that looks shiny and exciting. Actually make sure that you've got a genuine use case for that tool before you go out and purchase a tool. And lots of our AI models have free membership for a start, so you can get a small model, you can trial it for free, have a play, but don't feel like you need to invest a whole lot of money on a whole lot of new tools yet. One or two really well thought out and well designed tools is probably going to serve you better. This is a massive one, and it's only getting bigger in the equity and access space. So not everyone has equal comfort levels. Not everyone has equal access. Some people are going to be feeling incredibly apprehensive around the use of AI. There's, like any technology, there's always a barrier to adoption. People don't know what they don't know. They might be feeling a little bit nervous. They might be a little bit hesitant to ask questions. We as leaders need to be mindful of that, and we need to help build the capability of our teams and make sure that everybody's on an even playing field when it comes to opportunity to develop their skills, to build their skills. It's really interesting the number of organizations that I've seen that have implemented this amazing tool into their business. It's often Copilot or enterprise level GPT, and not provided any kind of training or development for people. They've just assumed that everybody's just going to know how to use this and understand how it's going to change their workflow and their workplace. And it's an incredibly naive kind of position to come from. So I'm not saying don't give you guys time to adapt and learn and experiment with these things, but don't expect people to make the shift of never having used AI to AI competent by just giving them a tool. It doesn't work like that. And my last one is transparency. So teams need to know when and how AI is used, and when and how they can use AI. So having those discussions, having that shadow AI discussion with your team, and really creating an open environment where people can share their concerns, they can share cool prompts, talk about things, making sure that everybody's got a voice at that table and that you're learning together. It hasn't been around for very long. We've got some people that have really elevated to expert level. Let them be champions in your team. Let them be the ones that fly the flag and help others. But make sure we're being really transparent around that. So what does great leadership look like right now? So it's a bit of a big question. I think great leadership looks the same now as it did before AI was invented. I don't think the quality of, I don't think leaders change. I don't think good leadership changes, right? It's just that the tools that we're using now and the challenges that we're facing have changed a little bit. So if you're doing all the things great leaders do, you're probably already doing a lot of the things that I've talked about today. And you're probably helping your team get through this in the ways that I'm talking about. So what does great leadership look like? First of all, we need to create clarity. So being clear around, like I said, what AI is being used for, what it can't be used for, any kind of privacy restrictions, concerns, any ambiguity around the tools, around what we can do and what we can't do. This needs to be an ongoing discussion within your team and with your organization. It can't just be a set and forget, I'm going to write an AI policy, send it out to everybody, get them to sign it, and expect everybody to know exactly how to treat AI. We need to constantly be upskilling, and we need to be developing people's confidence and capability with this new tool. The other part of that is responsible use. So as an organization and as a leader, you set the tone on how AI should be used. You need to start thinking about the ethics, the transparency. What is AI doing in terms of the relationship with your customer? How are you making sure that that human judgment stays in the loop and that the human still remains accountable for the output? Really important stuff that we want to make sure. And that transparency that we're talking about doesn't just stop within your organization. It should also include your customers in those discussions. It really should. And then recognizing that people adapt at different rates. This is a massive shift and a massive change. And this is also another piece of technology that we all need to learn. And that can be really daunting. And if you've got a million other things going on in your life at the moment, it might feel like the right thing to do is just to bury your head and to sort of jump off the AI train. And we're going to leave people behind if we let that happen. So we want to make sure that we, as leaders, we're thinking about capability and confidence in their AI use and checking in regularly on not just how the teams are using the tool, but how are they coping with this massive change, especially in industries where there might already be a bit of job threat, there might have already been a little bit of reduction in headcount, or the nature of the work that people are doing is changing. I'll give you an example of that just come up recently. I'm working with a team who they're computer programmers, they're coders, and they've just put Claude Code into their team. So they've just all got Claude Code licenses. There's about 8 of them. The person who's been really championing this has really excited to have Claude Code. He's not the team leader, he's one of the team members, and he's been educating the team, educating the leader, educating the organization, and checks and balances have been put in place, and the team have now got Claude Code. And what's changed for them, which was something that they didn't really anticipate, is they've now got Claude. And we were in a meeting, I was in a meeting with them, and one of them said, "Oh, Claude's doing my work right now." And so he had another screen running, and that was doing his day-to-day BAU work on the side. And that had freed up enough time for him to come into this meeting and have a chat. And they were talking to me about this weird thing now where they're sitting at their desks twiddling their thumbs because they're waiting for Claude to do their work for them. And of course, they've got to check it and they've got to do it. But these guys have been used to being busy and being tapping away at the computer and looking engaged and looking like they're being really productive. And now they've got this downtime while they're waiting for this Claude code output, and they don't really know what to do with each other. And they're a bunch of introverts, so they don't even turn around and talk to each other. They're all just sort of sitting here. And what we're trying to help them with is we don't want them to burn out. So we don't actually want them to be doing 3 times as much work, because they still need to have the cognitive load to be able to manage and control the output of what they're producing. And so if we just say use that downtime to do more, then down the track we're going to get mistakes and errors, and we're going to get things overlooked. So how do we redefine work for them, and how do we redefine what busy looks like for that team? These are all questions that we need to work together and find answers on. Okay, so a couple of things that I want you to do, and we are going to stay on a bit later and open for questions and answers if you do want to stay on later. But here are 5 practical actions that you can do from today. So first of all, like I said, start talking about AI openly. The good, the bad, the ugly, the exciting, okay? Invite that from your team and create a regular space for the team around what's working and what's not. That might look different for different teams. A little 15-minute huddle every week where someone shares something exciting they're doing. It could be a Teams chat or a Slack channel where people are sharing their use cases. It could be a half-day workshop. It doesn't matter as long as it's regular and people are really empowered to contribute. Experiment together. So one thing that we've been having fun with is little low stakes challenges. So the rate your week wine rater, that was just a fun little experiment where we were playing one day and we thought that could be a funny little joke. This is still building capability, and it's still showing people some cool things that they can be doing. It's really important we acknowledge the emotional side, and particularly around, I'm seeing some leaders kind of go out and say AI is not going to steal your job, but somebody who knows how to use AI will. And we need to get beyond that, and we need to get a little bit more sophisticated in our answers, because we're already seeing evidence of job reduction in some areas, and that's going to continue. So there will be other jobs created, like any other massive technological shift that we do, but we can't discount that for individuals, this is creating huge disruption and anxiety. And so it's important that we talk about that, and it's important that we provide that support when required. Connect AI to a purpose. So make sure our jobs as leaders is to make sure that the team understand the purpose of the work that we're doing, of why we're here. We need to be making meaning, and we need to be reinforcing that meaning. So connect AI to purpose. Your team don't care if they're going to become more productive. There's got to be more to it for them. And celebrate responsible use. So recognize people that are using AI thoughtfully or creatively, model the behaviors you want, and remember that the standard that you walk past is the standard that you're accepting. So make sure that you're a role model for how AI should be used in your context, in your team. Okay, guys. Thank you. That's 3:31. I've got a couple more slides, so if you can bear with me and stay with me, I'd love you to. First of all, I'd love to see in the Q&A if anyone has more statements around what their biggest takeaway from this session has been. It's really great to get insights on where people are at and what they're thinking, how we can help more. Yeah, really enjoy that part of my job. So I'd love to hear from you. Couple of things we just talked about. I've got some key takeaways. I'm going to come back to those, but I do want to just quickly talk to you about where to next, because this has just been me talking really fast at you for an hour. I don't even think I've had a glass of water. And there's heaps more that we can do to help you with your journey on AI. So I'm into leadership, so I've picked these 4 leaderships. I'm being a little bit biased, but we do have other courses that have AI components in them, particularly if you're project management. There's lots more, so jump on the website and have a look. The one course that I did want to highlight with you today is the Foundation of AI and Ethics. So if you're looking for the most logical next step in terms of your journey with skills and how what you think you need next, that's the course that I'd recommend that you just have a quick look at, because that's kind of the entry-level course that's going to get you in and give you a really good understanding of what this tech's all about. But there is also job-specific courses in there as well. I am going to go back to our questions in a second. I'm going to leave you this slide so you can grab the QR code to get more information. We've got our email addresses up there. So if you want to get in touch, please do. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to tell us that you found this a useful webinar, or what you'd like to hear in the next webinar as well. Okay, so I am going to open it up for questions. I can see some awesome ones in there, so bear with me while I feed through them, and we'll have a look at some of these answers. Feel free to stay with me if you can. If you need to drop off, I just want to say thanks very much for attending today. Okay, let's have a look. Now, I did want to read this because I think it's a great use case, and someone anonymous put this in. If it wasn't for AI, I probably wouldn't have landed the role. I used to sing my praises for the role I applied for in a way I couldn't put in words myself. I now use it in my role to communicate with fellow staff members to make me sound more professional, courteous than I am in discussions with colleagues and other team leaders, managerial staff. I use it to break down data from reports and single out trends. My main concern for it going forward is how much we might rely on it, and all answers comms between people are already AI based and very familiar in feel and content. Also, I've noticed it's not always 100% accurate, and I do worry about how secure some of the things we input into the likes of ChatGPT are. These are all real valid concerns, and I think that the antidote to this, your AI is talking to my AI, is get in front of them, pick up the phone. You know, that old school communication that we used to do where something comes out of a mouth and then it ends on someone's ear and they think about it and then they respond back. We need more of that, right? And that's going to be the real combat. This authentic connection with humans is how we're going to combat that. I'm just going to come down to another couple of questions. We had some good ones. Matt had a really good question around context. So he said, in your experience, how much context is too much context? if we put too much criteria around the prompt, we may inadvertently not uncover the insights or really valuable thinking. And he's got a really good point. Okay, so we need to curate the context. I'd probably lean on the side to say more context is better. But if you're giving, we'll use Claude as an example. If you're giving Claude three 200-page documents to sift through, where there's only relevant information on 3 of those pages, he's right. Matt's right. It might miss those 3 pages. So this is where that whole human in the loop comes into it. We need to use our judgment, and we need to try and give it as much context as possible. Where the integrated solutions work really well is because it's starting to build a working memory of what it's doing and how it's doing. And I find the context works in my systems when I've got that more. But if you're not getting the output that you're looking for, don't worry about the prompt, worry about the context that you're giving it. So upload your style guide, upload your policy, upload whatever you can to help it shape that answer. Context is more important than the prompt that you're using 99% of the time. We've got some really good comments here around another good one, which was a worry. Companies that are using metrics on an individual to understand why the employee isn't using AI on a daily basis. So we were starting to mandate things without a real use case. It can be really, that's that whole human judgment thing where we're losing that side of it. So I think there's some really good nuance in this chat. That potential loss of critical thinking is really coming through as a theme here. And I think that as educators and as leaders, that's really important. And let me see if there's any more questions. It doesn't look like, hopefully I've answered all the specific questions. I'm going to pull this through my AI and summarize it for you so we can share that back with all the participants as well, because there's some really awesome input into there, guys. Hey, thanks so much. Really enjoyed this. I hope you guys did too on the other side of the screen. Look forward to meeting you all again. Have a great afternoon.